We all have hopes. We all have dreams. We all have a purpose and a message. The time is now, and the time is now, and it is time for the door of opportunity for us to stand there and say, yes, we have an opportunity to change, and that opportunity to change is today. We are sharing our messages. We are sharing our stories. We are sharing our gifts. Well, that is what living is all about, creating legacy and crafting healing from all directions. Now is when it all comes together. Right now is when it all begins to make sense. So bring your past and bring today and bring whatever it is that you are to become, and ask yourself this: am I the world's next impactor? That was an invitation that went out 4 years ago, and people from all over the world came to race against time, not against each other, against time. And it went down to 50, then it went down to 25. And those 25 joined together in Chicago, in the greater Chicago area, in a mansion on a stage, and locked arms. We were all running against each other, and yet we weren't. We were running against time. There were 25, and then there were the top 5. Those top 5 stood together once again, our hands all up in the air, locked finger to finger. And then one name was rang out: Tamara L.Hunter. Me. I became the first global next impactor. Yet, after that, we all agreed that we were all going to make a difference together. And 4 years later, I can report to you that we have continued. Now, in my own family, I was not the first one to have a unique title such as that. You see, there's a legacy that I was raised with. My great-grandmother, her name, Anna Pearl Marvin Mitchell. Pearl, as she was known to everyone, and is my birthstone, yes. She was a graduate of high school, and then she went on to conservatory. And in 1909, she became a proud conservatory graduate. You may ask, why is that a big deal? Well, are you aware of the fact that conservatory was considered college? And she was a woman. And in the United States, that was before women even had the vote. So my great-grandmother Pearl, she not only became a college graduate, a conservatory graduate, she also wore a proud banner of being a suffragette. Yes, she joined the movement. And in her uniform, if you will, with sleeves going down to her fingertips and her hem down to the ground, her hair up in her hat, she wore a sash, she had a sign, and she said there needed to be equality for women, and women had the right to use their brains, because she had one, a college graduate, to be able to make a decision with their vote, with their voice. There were many that came together back in that day, and it was not an easy time. In fact, one of the founders of that movement, she said that the greatest thing we can have for security is, greatest protection we can have as women is our courage. Courage was what had them go out into the streets, and a movement that they were stronger together, that their voices together mattered. And yet, what happened? Well, we know many of the stories. They've been They've been, put into movies. You may even have had one come in your own family line, The Legend of a Suffragette. Are you aware that many of them ended up going to jail? Many of them lost their families. Many of them were shunned. And yet by 1920, the United States finally did it and gave women the right to vote. These women were heroes, and yet they got through it feeling almost bruised and broken because many of them knew that they were fighting for was not completed, that there was more to be done. Not every woman got the vote. That's another story. Yet what I'm sharing right here is that yesterday, March the 8th, was International Women's Day, a day set aside that we celebrate those that went before us, and we celebrate each other today, and we look to the future. Are you aware that the very first celebration took place in 1911? 1911, before the women's right to vote. Many of them were suffragettes, and they're saying, okay, we can do this. And they did. Yesterday, I joined a group of women from all over the world. Women that are inspiring movements of their own in areas of the world that are struggling right now. And in the spirit of International Women's Day, they were sharing what it is that they're facing. Well, it's not the very first time that it's been tough for the human existence. And we as women, wink, wink, we have a unique role to get out there and make a difference. Our voices need to be heard. There was a voice during the Depression era, a woman. She was the wife of the United States President, Eleanor Roosevelt. And she is quoted and celebrated now by many. She inspired millions during a time that people went to bed hungry, not only in the United States, but throughout the world. It was a catastrophe. Yet, in her simple way of speaking, she said that tomorrow is unknown. It's a mystery. Today is a gift. That's why we call it the present. What a remarkable way of thinking, that today is a present. Let's fast forward to the 1960s. Anybody remember that time? Groovy, man. It was a time of unrest. And there was a song that in 1967 or 1965, they went on to a TV show and sang, "Turn, Turn, Turn." And I bring this up because it was written 2,000 years before in a book many know as the Bible. Whatever your belief system is, it's a beautiful song. And in it has eternal truths, that there is a time to live, there's a time to be born, and there is a time to die. And it's what we do under heaven that matters. I am going to implore upon my sisters of the world and my brothers too, that right now, what matters is that we lock our fingers together. There are many out there that are wearing the same uniform that my grandmother did, that have the sleeves down to their fingers and their hems down to the floor. They put their hair up in their hat, and it may be known as a scarf or something else. And they equally need to have their voices heard. Brothers and sisters out there of the world, we can unite. We are stronger together. And I have a nonprofit that believes in this. That is what I translated my mission, my message, and those that ran against time with me joined me. Afterwards, the room was full of love and an agreement that we were not running against each other, that our world needs those people that will stand up and be a world impactor. So we joined together and we have been doing exactly that. We now call upon all of you, the brothers and sisters of the world. Are you ready to be a world impactor? Because, I understand that we together are stronger, and that we together, that there is healing through connections. It is what my platform was all about. I'm a cancer survivor, warrior that understands it's not easy always to live. However, it is so worth it. And so will you stand with me and help make it happen? Because you see, what we have now is we have the opportunity to tour of love. We can take the 60s and we can turn it into an existence full of love, and that together we will change the world, and together we can change the world with our hearts. So join me, join us, and let's do this.